Hello and welcome to my watch reviews. Now here's something I never thought I'd see, yet alone be able to film. It's the original Seiko Captain Willard, the 6105-8110, in the same place as its homage from Steeldive. In this video I'm going to look at both watches. I'm going to share you my opinion on the Steeldive versus the Seiko original. Now I do realise that this is going to be heresy for some, so I'll say now, with all honesty, that you cannot possibly compare the two like for like, as the Willard is just an icon, possibly one of the most famous and therefore desirable Seikos to a collector like me. The Seiko carries all the originality, the history, the prestige of the brand. It was innovation at the time it was made, and the design has stood the test of time for pretty much 50 years now. So has the Steeldive got any place to be in the same room? Well, let's put it this way. I own that Steeldive. I don't unfortunately own the Willard. Finding a Willard is not particularly difficult. Finding a good one though is going to cost you significantly more than the Steeldive. A good Willard, you're looking at £1,200, a lot more than that possibly as well. They just keep on going up, and the Steeldive cost me £80. I'll go into a bit more of the specifics about the Steeldive, but in essence I bought it so I could have the look and enjoyment, because I couldn't afford the Willard. Although one day for sure I will own one. I am a massive Seiko collector. I've got well over 100 Seikos from the 70s, so one day a Willard will be mine. But this one belongs to a good friend of mine called Keith Yates. Keith was a man that I met in hospital. He kept me sane when I was in a blind panic. I was about to have major surgery on my prostate to have it removed because I'd got prostate cancer, and Keith just so happened to be in the ward and in the bed next to me. Now I've made a full video on the restoration of this Willard as a thank you to Keith for his friendship on the day, and also because it has an amazing backstory. This watch was used for its purpose. Keith was a clearance diver for the Royal Navy back in the 70s, and then he went on to become a saturation diver too. So this Seiko saw a lot of action in his job, a lot of diving, a lot of underwater activities. I will highly recommend that you watch that video. It's a great story and one of my best videos I think on my main channel, My Retro Watches. There is a link below, so I suggest you go and watch that either now or at the end of this video. Let's start off with a bit of history of the Willard. The 6105 was Seiko's second ever dive watch that they'd produced, with a water resistance rating of 150 meters. There were two variants of this watch. There was a 6105-8000 and then the later 8110. The first had a symmetrical case and is now extremely rare, whereas the second one, the 8110, had that unique asymmetrical cushion shaped case that we're all used to seeing to this day. Seiko have used this design over the decades, using the case to flange out, creating a crown guard to protect it from any accidents. And I personally feel that if you look at most Seiko dive watches over the years, you can see the influence, and it all probably stems from this model. The Seiko was a popular choice amongst American soldiers in the Vietnam War. They'd buy them from their PX exchange on their bases. Had a good price point. It was durable, it was waterproof, and a tough watch for those tough conditions that they were fighting in, and thus how the watch got its name, because the watch was worn by Martin Sheen in that iconic film Apocalypse Now with Marlon Brando. Martin Sheen's character was Captain Willard. That's where the name came from, and a legend was born. Seiko have made many iterations of this watch over the years, right up to the present day, where you can still get them now. There's an SPB 151J1 that I've seen recently, all commanding a big, high, hefty price. So that's possibly where Steeldive comes in, and many other micro brands have replicated this look. However, Steeldive is the one I've got, so that's the one I'm going to show you. So let's start talking briefly about that now. The Steeldive has been reviewed to death on YouTube. That's how I found out about it, and it was my opportunity to get one because I wanted that look. I wanted to scratch the itch, and I never thought I'd be able to afford the original. And this one offers so much value for money, it's absolutely crazy. So I paid only £80, or just a little bit less than that, This is housing a Seiko NH35 movement. How Seiko can sell that to Steeldive knowing it's going in a watch that's homaging one of their own watches is beyond me. I bought mine on the stainless steel bracelet. I actually prefer it on the bracelet to the rubber strap in actual fact. It's got sapphire crystal with some AR coating on it, 120 quick unidirectional bezel, which the insert is also ceramic. Watch has got epic lume as long as you like 2 different colours of lume. But all of that just for £80 and you get that look of the original, which is a real bargain. But we've got to put them side by side while we've got the opportunity. So let's put them in the light box and compare. Okay, here we are on the bench, and before I get into the comparisons, just quickly touch on the restoration video on the main channel. So it's been a very, very popular video, and I asked a question in the video about should I replace the hands on the original Willard, and there's a unanimous yes. And I just want to clarify something on that one because I'm kind of keen to do it, although the decision really has to be Keith's. It's his watch, not mine. But all the aftermarket hands are like the ones on this particular model, and they're all for that caliber. So they're all for the NH35, 7S26, those sort of movements. Whereas this Seiko is a 6105. So I don't know at this time whether the hole in the hands and the tube in the hands is the correct size and will fit. So I might get a set because they're only about £10 and see if they fit just out of my own curiosity, and then of course if Keith likes them then I'll keep them on the watch. So there we go, that's out of the way. Let's talk about the inspiration behind the Steeldive, comparing it for the original. It sort of cringes me to do it in many respects because, you know, some people don't like the fact that watches are copied, but there we go. At first glance, these watches look remarkably similar, if not the same, but it's only when you start buckling down and looking at them a bit closer that you notice the difference. Now please excuse my hands, you're going to see them a little bit in these shots and they do look a little bit rough at the moment. So if we start off with the bezel, so the original bezel and the copied bezel, well okay, this one is ceramic, it's a lot more reflective, it's actually flat. This one is flat as well, but it's just, I don't know, I think it's probably the matte colour of it that makes it look different. The most obvious thing is the lume pip. So we have an original, well, I don't have a lume pip because it's long gone, but it was there originally. And on the Steeldive, there is no lume pip at all to be seen. The profile as well of the bezels is completely different. So you can see that sort of coin edge on the original is lower profile for a start and a little bit more refined than the chunky thing that it is on the Steeldive. Also to note is that the 6105 has a ball bearing, so it's called a, well, it's a click I suppose. Somewhere up here, I can't really see it, there is a ball bearing and it fits in those grooves as you rotate the bezel. The bezel being a unidirectional on the Seiko, so you can turn it any direction you wish. And the Steeldive doesn't have the ball bearing, has a more conventional spring clip, I would imagine in there. It's a lot tighter, and it only goes one way. But it's nice nevertheless. So that's the first sort of obvious one. If we then look down at the dial itself, so what can we see on the dial? Well, I'm sorry, we're going to get a lot of reflection, certainly on the Seiko one. Indices are similar, it's hard to measure them. I feel that the ones on the Seiko are slightly bigger. Of course the lume is a different colour, this is more of a yellowy colour, and strangely the old one hasn't turned yellow, it's stayed white. So definitely the indices are a little bit different. The date window as well, so the date window is a more sharper square, rectangle, whatever shape that is, whereas on the Seiko, hopefully you can see it's like the corners are just slightly rounded. So again, not a direct copy at all. I can't see the retort really to note how different that is, whether it's the same sort of profile or not, in part because of the crystal that's fitted for this. Doesn't reflect it as well, but if I hold it on an angle like that, certainly we're on about the inner black ring there, so I think that's probably slightly deeper on this one. The hands too, so hard to compare. They've made a good copy. The original ones, I feel, not that you can see them because they're covered in rust, have got more of a bevel to the edge, whereas this one has got some beveling but not as pronounced. So that's certainly the differences I can see on there. So moving on, again, sorry about my fingers, the case. So this is interesting. So again, at a glance you think, well, there, the case is pretty much the same, although I see things a little bit different. So first of all, the original has 19mm lugs, this one has 20mm lugs, so it does give it a little bit different profile. Kind of makes, well, weirdly, this one to me looks a lot fatter around the way it's, you know, this cushion case. This one doesn't. I'm sure if you measure it, it's probably going to be the same, but whether it's the finishing or whether it's the actual slope, the angle it's coming down at, is hard to say. We really would need to put them close together, but it looks similar, but visually I think it looks different when you're looking at them, you know, down as we are now. One other big noticeable difference is actually the crown guards as well. I love these sort of flared crown guards, but on the Steeldive they are a lot bigger. Certainly this first lug here is considerably larger than the one on the Seiko, and it's also got a slightly different profile. The way these are cut back at the bottom, they are not cut back as much, I don't think, on the original Seiko. While we're there, crowns. So interestingly, the 6105 is kind of known for this. It says a lock on it and a little arrow. So it's not a screw down crown per se. You can pull this out no problem and do whatever you need to do with it, but when you push it in and you turn it a little bit, there's a little pin, it locks onto the pin, and then that means you can't accidentally nudge this and change any of the settings. Obviously that would be vital, certainly if you're diving. It's the whole principle of it, but it's very easy to disengage by just pulling it out, and then there you go, it works again fine. Whereas Steeldive should I say, I keep saying Steeldive, it's a real terrible slip that is. This one is a screw down crown, so it's unscrewed at the moment, but the more conventional, which in many respects is probably more foolproof. It's not going to fail as easily as that would. So what else have we got? We can start measuring the case. Well, actually, let's talk about the crystal. So there's one obvious thing. This has got Sapphire Crystal. It's got AR coating. You may or may not be able to see that in my light. There is a slight blue hue to the light reflection, which is all very well and good. It's also flat, so that crystal is flat on the top. You can see it's got a lovely bevel around the edge and a flat crystal, whereas the original Seiko, this isn't the original crystal, so let's just quickly bring in the original crystal. We're keeping this for provenance, that's for certain. So with the original crystal, it's sort of dished on the inside there, and it's reasonably flat on the top, and that is what has been fitted in here too, so it's as good a copy as any. And the trouble you get with that, of course, is that light distortion there. For me personally, filming, taking photographs of this watch, it's really difficult to do because of that. So if I had one criticism, it would be to fit this crystal or a flat crystal to one of these, just to enhance the way it looks, certainly on the wrist. Okay, so let's do a little bit of measuring and see what we're going to get. So I've got the vernier, it's zeroed, and we'll do the thickness on the Steeldive, and we get 13.7 millimeters. And on the original, we are getting, well, let's just call that 13 millimeters, just slightly under. It's almost ½ inch. Depends on where you get it. There is a very slight dome to that crystal. So yeah, noticeably thinner. The case diameter should be 44 millimeters. It's hard to, again, where do you start with the case diameter on a shape like this? So look, 43.76, 43.8, and the original, you're looking at 43, 44. Again, it's quite hard to put the vernier in the right place for this. So yes, slightly different there too. But there we go. That is kind of all the visible differences I can see. There may be some others as well. The curious thing for me, I suppose, is was the Steeldive homage in this exact model of Seiko, or is it modelling one of the newer versions perhaps? Maybe the newer ones have a slightly bigger crown guard. That, of course, I don't know. I've not had a chance to ever look at one of the new models in hand, so that'd be interesting to actually see. I might have a look at some photographs actually, see if we can spot any other differences. The Steeldive, well, you know, conclusion on this one, tremendous value for money. Probably one of the best value for money watches out there. From a price point, it's £80. You get all of that look. It is a big hefty thing. It's got a Seiko movement, obviously Sapphire Crystal, got all the goodies. But you can wear that and, you know, damage it, drop it, use it for loads of different things, and really not worry about it that it's going to be a financial disaster. Whereas this thing is such a collector's piece now that yes, you would wear it, you would enjoy it, but maybe you'd wear it sparingly or in certain occasions. You know, you wouldn't want to be fixing your car or anything like that wearing this, because this is only going to appreciate in value. Steeldive, quickly talk about the bracelet. So we have some end links that have come off because obviously they're not attached. Got some crude milling underneath, but at least they are solid. The steel equally is solid links, as you can see. People criticise the clasp. I can see why. It's just a pressed crappy steel clasp. You can purchase a better one. You can buy one with the Steeldive logo on now. I think it's $20, but you know, for me, I'm not going to bother to do that at all. I do prefer the watch to be on the bracelet, funny enough, but then sometimes I like it on the strap. I would definitely recommend buying one of these straps from Uncle Seiko America or Uncle Seiko in the UK, which is where I got mine from. They're a lot more money. They're about £30. I've bought this one cheaply off the internet, and I think it was £5 or £6, and you really can tell the difference when you, oops, sorry, didn't mean to knock the camera, when you offer them up, you know. So if you want the look, then definitely put the, you know, a better quality strap on. It will really help you long term. So anyway, that's my conclusion of the two watches. If you wanted to pick up the Steeldive, there's going to be an affiliate link below, of course. It will be to AliExpress, and yeah, they are very cheap, worthy of having one. If you buy off that link, I of course will earn a small commission, so hopefully you'll all go and buy one. That's just a joke, please don't take that literally. So there we go. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, leave comments below. I'll read every one. I'll try to reply to everyone. I'll be very interested to hear what you've got to say about this one. If you've not checked out the video on this one, then please find an hour. It is an hour and 10 minutes, but it's an hour and 10 minutes of a brilliant story, and you can watch me take that watch apart, clean it, and put it all back together again. So yes, please tune into that. There will be a link in the description, and I'll try and put one in the corner now as well. Lastly, what is next on the channel? Well, I'm going to review one of my own watches, and it's another Seiko, but it's a real special one. Here we go. So this is the world's first digital chronograph watch. This is the top of the line from Seiko. At the time, these were even more expensive than an Omega Speedmaster, can you believe it? You can see it's got an amazing profile. I've had this watch in my collection for a number of years now. A lovely bracelet on it. And I restored this it was really battered, so I've completely redone the case. There's one bit I haven't done, but I'll talk about that in the video. So stay tuned for that one. That's going to be coming very, very soon. I've already got that in edit. So there we go. Hope you've liked it. I hope you've enjoyed this video, sorry. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye for now.